So all you do is you cut it off, right? And this one should have been cut off earlier, right? This is over a 24-inch diameter. You can basically lay these down between the rows and use them as an excellent mulch. You can just slice it up, put it in a container and put it in the freezer. Hey, it's Greg here with maritimegardening.com, and I thought I'd do a quick little video here talking about rhubarb and what to do when they go to flower. And the short version is you cut them off. So if you've got really healthy rhubarb that have grown for a number of years and they're getting good size and good everything, good sun, good nutrient, good, just all the right conditions, after a number of years, I mean, so I've got some big ones here, right? I mean, think about this leaf, right? That's, you know, like a 44-inch leaf, right? Give or take, right? It's sizable leaf, right? Right? So once it gets to that point after a number of years, it will go to seed. From everything I've read, the seeds are useless. And all the plant's really doing is putting energy into going to seed when you want to putting energy into the leaves, the foliage, and that sort of thing. So all you do is you cut it off, right? It's kind of hollow inside, looks like bamboo. So you just cut it off, right? And this one should have been cut off earlier, right? So I'm probably 2 weeks. I've been meaning to make this video and I just keep forgetting that I was meaning to make it. And these plants don't do this every year, right? But any year you see them do that, you want to cut these off before they actually begin to open up. And I mean, it looks, when it first comes up, it doesn't look like the other leaves. The best way I can explain it is it looks undeniably phallic, is the best way to put it, which kind of makes sense because it's a reproductive function of the plant. So when you see it in that shape, a particular shape, as hard as it is to do for some fellas, you cut it off at the base, right? So like you don't want to wait like I have over here with this one, right? I waited too long. So this plant put a lot of energy into flower. Don't want that, right? Or this one over here. Right? This one's gone a little too far. I mean, it's not the end of the world, you know, but if you think you're going to let it go to seed and save all those seeds, the likelihood of those seeds turning into a rhubarb that resembles the parent plant, unlikely. The likelihood of them germinating at all, unless you really know what you're doing, unlikely. So you're better off just doing that. Cut them off. There's another one. Jeez, I missed that one. Now, I mean, the rhubarb will be fine if you don't do any of this. But you know, your goal for growing rhubarb is not fruit, right? Your goal is to stock for whatever you're going to use it in, rhubarb crisp or whatever. And for that matter, you know, that's the best time to harvest them, before those things appear or as they're forming, right? Just like a lot of plants, the foliage, the greenery tastes better before the flower forms. You can still harvest them this time of year. I'm going to do some of that today. These plants definitely need to be harvested up a little bit. And you know, rhubarb is just a great thing to grow. There's only so much you can do with it. I tend to make something called rhubarb crisp. I should really do a video recipe on how I do rhubarb crisp, because I do not do it like other people, and I think mine's better. Stay tuned for that. But yeah, when you see those, if you see those things forming, it means you've got really healthy plants and they're really happy. But cut them off, and your plants will do a lot better. I'm out here harvesting my rhubarb, and I thought I'd sort of talk about what I'm doing while I'm doing it, for those that are new to the world of rhubarb. So rhubarb's easy to grow. It takes maybe 2 or 3 or 4 years for a plant to get mature and start getting good size like mine here, right? These leaves are, you know, they range in size, but they're basically the width of my, I got some that are basically shoulder to shoulder on me. I'm 6'4", right? So, you know, pretty sizable, and, you know, give or take, they're about, not all of them, right? It's all over the place, but, These ones are about 1 inch in diameter. I got some that are 1.5 inches and some that are thinner. At some point in the spring, it's the right time to harvest it, right? They'll continue to grow all summer long, and you can kind of harvest it whenever you need, but it's arguable that it's at its best this time of year, basically when it's achieved its first size and its first growth and its first blush, in a sense, right? My view on harvesting is, number one, I've got walking paths here, right? So you cut them off low at the base. There's ways to tear them off, but you just cut them off low at the base. So my first thing for me is I get everything out of the walking path, because it's just going to get stepped on anyway, right? Also, with the system I got here in my garden, I want my walking paths kind of dry, right? I don't want things growing in them. If there's shade in the walking path, then this sand in the walking path can stay moist, and weeds are more likely to germinate and stuff like that, right? So I just cut these off as low as I can and get all the ones that are growing out in the walking paths first. Because they're going to get stepped on, they're going to get broken, they're going to get compromised anyway. Also, a little tip. Look at the size of this leaf, right? These leaves, if you plant your other garden beds in rows, right? So you got a row of this and a row of this, and they're a foot apart. You can basically lay these down between the rows and use them as an excellent mulch. They'll basically block out all the sunlight to whatever weeds are growing between your rows, and keep it kind of weed free and break down and decompose and so on. I mean, there's going to be some people who say, don't the leaves have toxins in them? Yeah, they got, some oxalic acid in them. Just about everything that grows in your garden, every green you eat has some level of oxalic acid, but I don't want to get on a diatribe about that. Suffice it to say, you can totally use these as a mulch between the rows of your other plants. They work great, and I do all the time. Anyway, once I've gotten the ones that are in the walking paths right out of the way, all right, I'll finish that later off camera. Once I've done that, then I go into the plant, and what I do, a couple more here, I guess I've already stepped on these and they've already been broken. I go into the plant and I remove all the biggest ones, because they're blocking the light for the other ones. I've got one here. Look at the size of this thing here. Look at this is over a 24-inch diameter. 24 inches wide. This one's enormous. Look at I got a 6'4" man's hand, so look at my thumb by comparison, right? My thumb disappears behind that. That's a big one, right? That's a big one. Anyway, all these really big ones, you want to get them gone because they're blocking light to the plant. Right, so the plant will put on more growth once you've removed them. And the great thing about rhubarb, I mean, you see me harvesting a lot and you're thinking to yourself, I know you're thinking, what are you going to do with all that rhubarb? We don't eat rhubarb fresh, right? We cook it, right? We cook it as a sauce, or we have it as like a dessert, like a rhubarb crisp. Although I make a rhubarb crisp, so it's almost like rhubarb squares. I'll have to do a recipe on how to do that one of these days. So we only really have it two ways, and we have it cooked, and we give it to people. Give it to my mother, give it to some neighbors that like rhubarb, right? People that grow up with it sort of can't do without it. So it's easy to store. You can just slice it up, put it in a container and put it in the freezer and use it later. Or you can can it. It's very easy to can, right? Because it's basically almost pre-made for, if you pressure can it, just like you pressure can anything else, it'll keep, and you just take it out of the can when you want to make your rhubarb crisp or your delicious dessert or your sauce or whatever. Totally doable. Right, but in terms of what's needed for the rest of this, Yeah, you just walk around and take all the biggest ones out at this time of year, right? So that light can get into the rest of the plant. I mean, some people might disagree with that approach, but right, these huge ones aren't going to grow anymore, right? And these are sort of like the biggest, juiciest, and best. So these are the ones you want to eat, even if you're not eating them fresh. I mean, when I was a kid, we'd cut these off and we'd dip them in sugar and eat them like that, right? But yeah, it's not a lot of work to just walk around the garden, right? And just take out. That one's no good. All the biggest. And you'll notice by the way I'm doing this, you almost can't tell that when I'm done, it's almost like pruning, right? I mean, you're basically removing some of the growth to allow light and air to get into the remaining growth. So it's almost, not a huge effect. You still have a lot left. I think there's just like one more over here I'm going to take. I think I'll leave the rest, because that's a lot of rhubarb to process. All right, so that's basically any kind of rhubarb dessert we're going to have over the course of the summer. This is like, 6 Sunday dinners worth of dessert. And we're not going to have rhubarb every Sunday, right? So that's certainly enough for us. I'll store that up. And there's more. If we need more, there's more. Or if we get a neighbor or a friend that wants some, there's plenty there. And now I've got all these to use as a mulch in my other gardens. Great mulch. So anyway, just a few tips on when to harvest rhubarb, the principles I use to determine which ones to cut and which ones to leave. I mean, you could cut them all off, I suppose. It'll continue to grow, but that's what I do. I take the biggest and best and just let it continue to grow all season. Next year we'll have new big, huge ones for next year. That's how we do it. I hope you found that video interesting. If you did, please like, share, subscribe, and until next time, get out there, get at it, have fun in your garden. Thanks for watching.